Continuing here. Well, the reason I'm talking about this sin business is because my take on it is that being a sinner is something we all have to admit, okay? And if we don't admit that, then there's nothing to forgive. Then the whole thing with Jesus becomes null and void, because the whole idea is that this was a ransom. When Jesus was willing to die and this painful, horrible death, it was this payment. It was paying a ransom for our sin. Okay, this was a propitiation, and what it's called is the final propitiation. So it's so important to confess that we're sinners. We're fallen, that we have a propensity to be murderous and adulterous and thieving and cheating and conniving and all these qualities that are unbecoming. And this all came at the fall of man. It was this knowledge of good and evil, and then the greed and all this stuff, the avarice, this insatiable urge for more and more and more, and just it's evil. It's a satanic tendency. So we have to all admit that. And we don't say, well, this guy's a worse sinner, so I'm going to look down at him. I'm going to castigate him, but, well, you know, not looking at my own sin. But it's important to understand also that, look, there's a distinction between being a sinner and falling and being weak into sin, and being the one that offers up the sin, that promotes the sin, that revels in the sin. You understand? There's a big difference. Woe to the man through whom the sin comes, right? So you don't want to be the one that's proliferating it, profligating it, selling it, pitching it, purveying it. And so I don't do that. I don't recommend sin. I think it's a serious business. This is why we need a personal relationship with God. But we can't let it keep us from being empowered to confront the evil force of this world, because these people are wicked. And just because you're a sinner, it doesn't make you wicked. It doesn't make you haven't surrendered to it. But obviously, by the fruits of these evil world rulers, the globalists, the New World Order cabal, it's the money printing class, it's all these elitist hypocrite types. They're all involved in this scheme to continue command and control over humanity's affairs by hook or by crook. You know, whatever method they need to use, they're going to try their damnedest to do it and just keep the wool pulled over our eyes, keep us stupid, keep us off balance, lacking confidence, confused, ignorant, keeping the waters muddy, right? They don't want you swimming over to where the water is nice and clean and clear, that God is encouraging all of us to do. He wants us to swim over to the clean, clear water and see stuff in a simplistic manner. And just say, look, this is just about logic and reason and honesty here. This is how we're going to extricate ourselves from this mess, how we're going to confront it. We've got to try to really reach people, not with the idea that we're going to come out of this thing proving them wrong and that we're right. That's not what's really most important. That's not really too much avail. That's not what's going to be effective in winning people over. In fact, it might drive people away. And then someday when we stand before our owner, we'll have to answer for everything. We'll say, yeah, but I just was stressed out and I was blowing off steam and I just had to get something off my chest. And so, it made me feel self-righteous and it boosted my ego for the moment and made me feel good. And so that's why I did it, God. I mean, what is that? What is that? Well, that other soul is lost now. So you were right. Now you didn't win them over to your way of thinking. When knowing that you were right and that they were wrong, well, couldn't you have tried a better approach? What's the Lord God going to ask us? So we want to make sure we're on the right side of history here, particularly when it comes to that day, that time in history when we're going to stand before God, okay, which could be today. It might not be far off to look forward to. None of us ever know when our last breath is going to be taken. I mean, Charles Manson died recently. Maybe he repented on his deathbed. And all those holy, righteous people were going to end up living next door to Charles Manson. Well, what the hell? Did we go to hell? No, it's just that we didn't know it, but Charles Manson was, repentant on his deathbed. We don't know. God is God. God can do whatever God wants to do. And we just have to suck it up and agree that's the way it must be. And if we think it's hyper-liberal or we think it's too conservative because God doesn't want us aborting our children, that's tough for all of us, liberal conservatives alike. We all have to suck it up and say God's way, not our way, damn it. And we just got to demand that we, the people, rule this nation and this planet. And we get our way. We get what we want. which is what God wants. That's the only things we should want. And numero uno is to be free, not to be partially free, somewhat free, just free enough. No, completely free. So that's, at the end of the day, that's what we have to figure out. We have to figure out, how can we get there from where we are? How are we going to extricate ourselves? Well, first we got to understand the issue. We got to be honest. We got to say, no, I'm going to reject the ignorance. I'm going to be open-minded. I'm going to listen to this clown and this clown, Sure, I don't mind. Call me a clown. I don't care. The most important thing is that I'm a clown that's on your side. I don't care who I'm talking to. I don't care if I'm talking to George Soros. I don't care if I'm talking to Al Gore, George Bush, or Bill Clinton, or, any of the righteous people that I really look up to and admire out there. Okay, the point is that we have one God, we have one owner, one creator. I mean, we have to all subjugate ourselves willingly of our own free will and accord to that God and his will and his way in order to free ourselves and to extricate ourselves from this mess. All these vices that we find to escape, those things will fall away naturally. I firmly believe if we could just get on the right trajectory here toward freedom. And Trump may be doing that. This past Wednesday, I was very excited about to hear this idea that, wow, they're talking about Trump getting rid of this tax credit for, you're paying the interest on your house. So, this was a subsidy to all these homeowners, but they're taking advantage of it. They're using it as a loophole. They're keeping mortgages in perpetuity. Instead of paying it off, they're just using it as a scam. Do you understand? That's how it works. Trump knows that. And he knows the effect it's going to have on the housing market. Okay? And the effect is you're going to have lower housing costs. And I'm very happy. Like I say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And Trump knows what the hell he's doing. That's fantastic. Good for him, man. I mean, this, socialists, all those socialists right now, they ought to just be praising Trump. You ought to understand. You've got to understand. That's going to translate to lower rent. Don't you want that? That means Section 8 housing, they're on a fixed income of $50 billion a year. Gee, poor guys, Section 8. But, okay, that money will go a hell of a lot further. So it's a step in the right direction. Do you understand? That this really might, start adding up to ending homelessness. If there's more, if the rents go down, okay, then Section 8 can pay more rent, for more people. You understand? If they're paying less. Because if the rent is X and, the portion that Section 8's been paying is Y, okay, and you being the tenant, you have to pay that Y. Okay, now that the rents are lower, Section 8 says, hey, we're not paying that much. Now there's surplus money that we can start ending homelessness. So it's the right direction. And eventually, yes, we need to get off the welfare, but it's the last thing to go. It has to be. Because this is the part of the wreckage. This is what they've done. They've done all this damage. So it's just like, well, we're going to punch the citizens in their face. But look, we're providing a paramedic for them, because, they're injured now. And that's what it's been like. So that's why we have the welfare industry that's sprung up. They've got to do that because they can't just keep punching the citizens in the face, stealing their wealth, and saying, well, sorry, there's no recourse. We're a dictatorship now. We have this tiny critical mass, but we're powerful enough to get it our way because we're the politicos, Oh, we don't care that you hired us. Now we're in. Now we're in position. Now we're your rulers. We're senators in Congress, and we vote for the bailout. And we don't care what you stupid peons want. You, the people, you're idiots. You believe in a constitution. You believe in democracy. You believe in a republic. You're idiots. Isn't that the message they have for the people? Well, we've got to change that around. But remember, I want to talk to everybody out there. All you people that see that as a bad thing. I'd say, hey, that means I'll have less equity in my house. If my house goes from $200,000 to $100,000 because of this stupid Trump policy, then I see that as a bad thing. And I don't care who you are, but you're not going to convince me that's good for me. Well, I'm going to try to convince you that's good for you. Okay? Because just remember, the cheaper housing gets, then the more you like housing, you like houses, then you'll be able to buy more. You understand? You'll be able to buy a better house, okay? Do you understand how this works? Or you'll be able to buy more houses. Do you understand? Your housing money will be worth more. It's just the same way I've explained the VCR. And that's a whole nother thing. Now they started going back up in price. They've doubled since the last time I had to buy a VCR about 3 years or 4 years ago. They were, I got one new DVD player VCR combo for like $120 on Amazon, and now it's like $250. So don't ask me. I mean, it's now you get a monopoly going and people start colluding. This is the problem with special interest groups out there, is that they collude, they conspire. They say, hey, look, you know what? I'm a contractor, but look, if you can manipulate the prices, you lenders understand you make more commission. You understand the more money you rent out, the more money you make. You got it? And the real estate agents whisper, you get it? You understand commission, you get more, and blah, blah, blah. And the government, you get it? You understand that your taxes based on a percentage, so the higher we drive the prices, the more taxes you get. So it should be very, very simple to understand the motive, the incentive that all these special interest groups have for raising your prices, okay, without any discussion. The mainstream media goes along with it, and they convince people, oh, yes, this unearned increment, your house just went up for no reason. In fact, it might be falling into ruin and decay. You haven't made any improvements in decades, but still it went up in worth for no reason. And you're like, you're innocent little homeowner, I'll take it. Sure, why not? You see, you don't understand. Long term, it's a Ponzi scheme, a pyramid scheme. How long can it go on like that? How long is that going to be a good thing? Because the percentage of homeowners is falling. That's a matter of fact. They pumped it through the roof with George Bush, the FHA loans, and all that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac nonsense that went on. That was pooling. That was a monopoly of mortgages, really. That's all they did. They pooled all these mortgages in there. It was another big scam, another big special interest. That's it. And the investors, oh, well, we're all making money on credit default swaps and derivatives. We don't know what it means, but, as long as I'm not stuck holding the bag and my masters have assured me nobody is, because we've privatized the profits and we've socialized the debt. It's fallen on the backs of the poor, those that can least afford it. Yes, you'll see more homelessness, more wreckage, more extreme poverty. The wealth and income disparity is going to grow and it's going to go through the roof. But we call that capitalism. We call it America, even though it's not at all capitalism. It's fascist. It's at best crony capitalism. It creates problems. And then we got all these people out there that thinking these rabid communists and socialists just appeared out of nowhere. Came out of thin air. Don't know. They were just red diaper doper babies, had a bad upbringing, but they don't ever stop to think, wait a minute, no, that's bull. You think it's happening in a vacuum? It isn't. Crony capitalism, the best method of creating communists, rabid communists and socialists, is through anti-capitalistic policies like crony capitalism. Just because it has capitalism in its name doesn't mean squat. Okay, it's contrary to capitalism. Okay, progress, capitalism we have to have some common progress for the people at large. If it's not, then I don't stand behind capitalism at all. Okay, but I sure as hell don't support socialism in the Robin Hood sense. I don't believe in stealing. And that's what it is. I don't believe in wealth distribution in that sense. Taking from the haves to give to have-nots, it doesn't work anyhow. It just creates animosity. And people find tax loopholes. They get an attorney to find ways. They put their money offshore. They shelter it. They do what they can. They find loopholes. Do you understand? So it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The people can afford to pay all the bills are going to escape. They're going to evade. They're going to avoid paying the taxes. They're not going to do it. They're the thieves. They're the big thieves, the big fat mooches and leeches stealing the wealth of the people. Do you understand? They're sure as hell not going to be the ones paying it under some Robin Hood pretext. No way. So socialism is dead. It's not going to work. I mean, it'd be way better just to be sycophants to the crony capitalists. You'd probably get a lot further in finding some relief, finding some mercy and some compassion from these people if you appeal to their tender side. They just say, hey, look, please, you know what, I can't afford to pay my rent anymore. Can you cut my rent by $50 or, whatever. Start, in that direction, but it has to be confronted. Okay, you're going to do a lot better. If that's, worst comes to worst, that's the best the socialists can do is just ask for mercy from the crony capitalists who aren't capitalists at all. They're just fascists. They're just part of a special interest group of people that want to raise your cost of living, raise your burden, raise your taxes. And all it takes is, one spark. sets the whole forest afire. So you can say, well, there's a spot fire over here, but remember the source. It got blown in the wind, that ember that started the fire. It all started from one source. So when I talk about chain reaction inflation, all you need is one spark, and that spark is the cost of housing, because housing is an essential human need. Okay, they couldn't have done this with VCRs or any other luxury items, sailboats or jet airplanes or cars or anything else. It had to be something they had you by the throat, something you needed to survive. That's what a basic, essential human need is. So